7 of the rarest Hemi muscle cars in the world. Muscle cars, raw power, and a legend under the hood. What makes these 7 Hemi muscle cars so rare? Let's find out. 1967 Dodge Coronet W023. When people think of Dodge muscle cars, names like the Charger and Challenger tend to steal the spotlight. But before those heavyweights took over, Dodge had another contender flexing its muscles on the streets, the Dodge Coronet. While it might not be the first name that comes to mind today, back in the muscle car arms race of the 1960s, the Coronet was an absolute force to be reckoned with. Dodge first introduced the Coronet to its performance lineup in 1965, and while it came with a variety of V8 options, it wasn't until 1967 that things got truly ridiculous. That was the year Dodge decided to drop the legendary 426 Hemi under the hood and create one of the most fearsome street-legal drag cars of its time, the 1967 Dodge Coronet W023. But this wasn't just another muscle car with a big engine. The W023 package was essentially a factory-built race car, stripped down to the bare essentials to keep weight to a minimum. Dodge deleted unnecessary luxuries like carpet, soundproofing, and even the radio, all in the name of sheer speed. What remained was a raw, brutal machine built for one thing: winning. And win it did. The 426 Street Hemi was an absolute monster, officially rated at 425 horsepower, though real-world numbers were likely even higher. That kind of power in a lightweight, purpose-built chassis made the W023 Coronet a nightmare for competitors on the drag strip. But here's where it gets crazy. Dodge only built 55 of these cars. That's right, just 55 W023 Coronets ever left the factory with a Hemi under the hood, making it one of the rarest factory-built race cars of the era. That rarity, combined with its legendary performance, has turned the 1967 Dodge Coronet W023 into a holy grail among Mopar collectors. Even celebrity gearheads like Jay Leno have sung its praises, and if you want to get your hands on one today, be ready to write a massive check. Finding a genuine W023 is almost impossible, and when one does pop up for sale, expect it to fetch 6 figures at least. 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona. The Dodge Charger isn't just a muscle car, but it's a legend. From the moment it hit the streets in 1966, it was a game-changer, packing brutal power into a sleek, aggressive body. But in 1969, Dodge wasn't interested in just making another cool street machine. They wanted a missile, something that could obliterate the competition on the NASCAR circuit. Enter the 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona. A car so outrageous it looked like it had been beamed down from another planet. The Charger 500 had fallen short on the track, and that wasn't going to happen again. So they went all in, giving the Daytona a needle-sharp nose cone, hidden headlights, and a towering rear wing that looked almost comical, until you realized it was the key to keeping this monster glued to the pavement at ridiculous speeds. And under the hood? The legendary 426 Hemi 5.8, one of the most feared engines of its time. But the result? A Dodge Charger that didn't just compete, it made history, becoming the first car to break 200 miles per hour on a NASCAR track. But here's the kicker. NASCAR had a rule that required race cars to be available to the public. So Dodge, much to their dismay, had to build street-legal versions of this winged warrior. In the end, only about 70 Hemi-powered Daytonas ever made it to public hands, making it one of the rarest and most sought-after muscle cars in history. And if you want one today, be prepared to empty your bank account. A well-kept Daytona can easily fetch over $500,000, and if you're chasing a pristine, numbers-matching example, you could be looking at a $2 million price tag. 1970 Plymouth Superbird. If you thought the Dodge Charger Daytona was wild, its Plymouth sibling, the Superbird, took things to an entirely new level. Built for one purpose and one purpose only, domination on the NASCAR circuit, the Superbird was an all-out aerodynamic experiment that left its mark on both racing history and the muscle car world. By 1970, Plymouth had grown desperate to win back Richard Petty, who had jumped ship to Ford. Their strategy? Give him something so fast, so extreme, and so ahead of its time that he simply couldn't refuse. The result was the Superbird, an evolution of the Plymouth Roadrunner, but with an unmistakable wind-cheating nose cone and a sky-high rear wing designed to keep the car glued to the track at 200+ miles per hour. And yes, Plymouth even gave it a beep-beep horn to honor its Looney Tunes inspiration. Under the hood, the Superbird came with 3 engine options, but the true unicorns were the ones equipped with the legendary 426 Hemi 5.8. With 425 horsepower and a pair of Carter AFB 4-barrel carburetors, this winged warrior could blast from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 5.5 seconds. The Superbird dominated NASCAR, with Petty winning 8 races in 1970 alone. But it wasn't long before NASCAR's rulemakers killed the winged warriors. For 1971, they imposed rules that either restricted their engine size or forced them to carry extra weight, effectively outlawing their competitiveness. The Superbird was done after just 1 model year, and many dealerships struggled to sell them. Some sat unsold until 1972, with a few even converted back into standard Roadrunners just to move inventory. Today, those once unsellable Superbirds are some of the most valuable Mopars on the planet, fetching between $200,000 and $450,000 at auction, depending on the engine and options. With only 1,920 ever built, owning a Hemi-powered Superbird is like owning a piece of racing mythology, one that still looks as outrageous today as it did back in 1970. 1970 Dodge Super Bee. When it comes to underrated Dodge muscle cars, the Super Bee is the definition of a hidden gem. While names like Charger dominate the conversation, the Super Bee often flies under the radar, which is ironic, considering it was built to sting the competition. First introduced in 1968, the Super Bee was Dodge's answer to Plymouth's wildly popular Roadrunner. Both cars shared the same Mopar B body platform. Both were built for no frills, straight-line speed, and both could be had with Hemi power under the hood. But while the Roadrunner usually gets the glory, the Super Bee had its own rowdy, take-no-prisoners attitude that made it a serious contender. By 1970, Dodge had fine-tuned the Super Bee into an even meaner street machine. The car sported a bold new look with a split grille design, aggressive body lines, and a no-nonsense interior that reminded you this thing was built for speed, not luxury. Under the hood, most Super Bees came with Dodge's 440 cubic inch 6-pack Vive 8, a powerhouse of an engine that made 390 horsepower and could shred tires with ease. But for those who wanted the ultimate street weapon, Dodge offered the legendary 426 Hemi 5.8. The catch? Almost nobody bought one. By 1970, muscle car buyers were starting to shift toward more practical performance options, and the Hemi-powered Super Bee was an ultra-rare sight on the streets. In fact, Dodge reportedly built just 36 Super Bees with the 426 Hemi that year, making it one of the rarest Dodge muscle cars ever produced. Today, those few surviving Hemi Super Bees are worth a small fortune. If you happen to have one in pristine condition, you're sitting on a car that could easily fetch over $170,000 at auction. 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner convertible. When it comes to ultra-rare, Hemi-powered muscle cars, few can match the 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner convertible in sheer scarcity. Plymouth introduced the Roadrunner in 1968, taking direct aim at budget-conscious gearheads who wanted pure muscle without the unnecessary frills. Inspired by the legendary Looney Tunes cartoon, the car even came with a horn that mimicked the famous beep-beep sound of its animated namesake. But while the name and gimmicks were fun, there was nothing comical about what lurked under the hood. Right from the start, the Roadrunner packed serious firepower, launching with a 335 horsepower 383 V8 as standard. Buyers craving even more muscle could opt for the 446 pack or the top-tier 426 Hemi 5.8, pushing 425 horsepower straight to the pavement. The Roadrunner quickly became a sales phenomenon, with over 40,000 units sold in 1968, and that number doubling in 1969. By 1970, however, sales began to decline, and most of the roadrunners that did roll off the assembly line were hardtops. The convertible models were already rare, and when you add in the Hemi engine, the numbers become almost mythical. While Plymouth produced 34 Roadrunner convertibles with the 446 pack, Hemi-powered versions were almost non-existent. In fact, it's believed that only 3 Hemi Roadrunner convertibles were built in 1970. One of these ultra-exclusive beasts reportedly came with a 4-speed manual transmission and the legendary pistol grip shifter, making it an irreplaceable one-of-one unicorn. So, what's a car like this worth today? If one ever surfaces at auction, expect it to fetch a 7-figure price tag. 1971 Plymouth GTX. If the Plymouth Roadrunner was built for the young and reckless, the GTX was its more refined yet equally deadly sibling. Marketed as a gentleman's muscle car, the GTX combined brutal Hemi power with upscale styling, making it one of the most unique muscle cars of its era. But by 1971, muscle cars were on borrowed time, and the GTX was no exception. The 1971 Plymouth GTX marked the final year the model would be a standalone vehicle, before being demoted to an options package on the Roadrunner. This swan song came with a dramatic body redesign, featuring a curvier, hourglass shape that made it look even more aggressive. While most GTX models came standard with the 440 Ci Super Commando 5.8 pushing 375 horsepower, the real unicorns were the ones fitted with the legendary 426 Hemi. How rare are we talking? In 1971, only 30 GTX models were ever built with the Hemi 5.8. These cars weren't just about looks, they were absolute monsters on the road. A Hemi-powered GTX could rocket from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 4.8 seconds, obliterating the quarter mile in 13.5 seconds at 105 miles per hour, numbers that embarrassed even some modern muscle cars. Despite its power and luxury, the GTX struggled in sales, with rising insurance rates and new emission regulations killing off high-performance muscle cars left and right. The GTX nameplate officially ended in 1971, making this the final true GTX model ever produced. Today, a 1971 Hemi GTX is one of the rarest Mopars on the planet. With just a few ever made, finding one is nearly impossible, and owning one? That's a ticket into muscle car royalty. 1970. Dodge Challenger RT Convertible. Dodge Challenger RT Convertible is in a league of its own when it comes to rarity and desirability. The Dodge Challenger made its grand entrance in 1970, joining the brand's muscle car lineup alongside the Charger and the Super Bee. Dodge wanted a piece of the pony car market, and the Challenger was built to take on the Ford Mustang and Chevrolet Camaro head-to-head. Buyers could choose from a lineup of power-packed engines, including the 318 cubic inch, 340 cubic inch, and 383 cubic inch V8s. But for those who craved unfiltered pavement-melting power, Dodge offered the legendary 426 Hemi 5.8. Right off the bat, Hemi-powered Challengers were rare. Dodge only built around 200 Hemi Challengers in 1970, making them an exclusive sight on the road. But things get even crazier when you add the RT trim package into the mix, which further reduces production numbers. Only 60 RT Challengers left the factory that year with a Hemi under the hood, and most of those were hardtops. Now, if you wanted the rarest of the rare, you had to get a convertible. Dodge reportedly built just 9 Hemi-powered Challenger RT convertibles in 1970, making it one of the most elusive muscle cars ever produced. Today, these cars are worth a fortune. A well-preserved Hemi Challenger RT convertible can easily fetch $750,000, but don't be surprised if the bidding war pushes it past $1 million. Ever seen one of these rare Hemi muscle cars in person? Drop your thoughts below. And if you're a true muscle car enthusiast, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more in-depth stories on legendary car moments.